What's happening? Thanks for joining me. As always, it is very much appreciated. The power is back on. I am here after a birthday weekend, and we have a lot to discuss after today's joint practice between the Patriots and the Eagles. Before I get to that, I remind all of you, you can help us out by subscribing to this channel. If you enjoy the content that we do, it takes a second of your time to subscribe. Takes even less of your time to click that thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. All the likes mean the world to us. It's how we build this community. So don't forget to like the comments as well. Throw some comments in. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Are you concerned about Drake Maye? Concerned about the Patriots? What you're hearing, what you're seeing? So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, Spotify, Apple Pods. Our friends over there, rate and review. Today's practice was the most important practice of training camp. We've been talking about this joint practice since the beginning of this camp. When we found out the Patriots and the Eagles would have this joint practice, we all circled the calendar. And there are lots of takeaways from what happened today on that practice field. Now, I will be as honest as possible, as I always am, up front. I did not get to watch a ton of defense. The way this works is you got split fields. On one field, you've got the defense, the ones working against the offense of the ones for Philly. And then you have the field that was really right in front of me, which was the Patriots' first offense going against the Eagles' first offense. And then you have the rotations of the twos and the threes. So the defense was far away from me. They were closer to the fans in the stands, whereas in front of us, it was the Patriots' offense. So I only got to see about 8 to 10 defensive snaps. So very limited information as far as what I saw. I will tell you what other people saw and what other people have said they saw from the defense today. But I focused almost entirely on the offense. And here's the first thing I will say. Going back to Thursday night, last Thursday night against Carolina, preseason game happened. And what I would have said on Friday if my power worked, what I would have said was I didn't quite understand how Drake Maye was handled. And not necessarily that he only got one series, but what was said after the game. And we were told that this was the plan, right? This was the Drake Maye plan. They had talked about this, Drake Maye and the coaching staff. They had these conversations about how they would handle Drake Maye in these preseason games. What I did not understand wasn't the fact of Drake Maye, playing one series, and then they wanted to take the ones out, the offensive line ones, right? Wanted to take those guys out because they didn't want to leave them out there for too long. I understood that. I understood that Drake Maye might not play behind the twos. We talked about that on this podcast. I talked about it on 98.5. I wasn't shocked. I questioned whether or not the offensive line would impact the strategy, would impact the playing time of Drake Maye. So I wasn't too surprised by any of that. My issue going back to last Thursday night was that if you're going to play a quarterback 2 series, play Drake Maye the 2 series, right? You end up trying to split the baby. You have Jacoby Brissett out there for the first series behind the starting offensive line. And then you throw Maye out there behind the starting offensive line. Maye only gets 1 series, which to me was not enough. I wanted to see at least 2 series from him on Thursday night. And I thought the Patriots, what they should have done was they should have not played Jacoby Brissett. Because how much of a difference does one single solitary series in the first preseason game, how much does that make a difference to Jacoby Brissett's life? We know who Brissett is. He's played at the NFL level. He knows exactly what to expect. So playing him 1 quick series at the start of that game, to me, did almost nothing for you. And playing Maye 1 series behind the starting offensive line did almost nothing for you. So you pulled out the half measure. And because you try to split that baby, you didn't give Maye enough time, and you pretty much wasted Brissett's time. If you're going to play Brissett 1 series, just don't play him at all. Play Maye both series behind the ones for that offensive line to see how he looks with the starters in front of him. So I didn't understand that. So fast forward to today, and I will have a couple of caveats here, right? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know if the coaching staff is concerned by the lack of progression from Maye. We know what they've said publicly, but maybe behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in meetings, whatever, maybe they're a little concerned about rushing him into this and they're really, really, really handling Drake Maye with kid gloves. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We also don't know what's going to happen on Thursday night when they have the preseason game, the second of 3 preseason games against Philadelphia. So we don't know what the plan is going to be in a couple of nights from now. But I can tell you what happened today. And once again, Drake Maye was out there and did not get a single snap behind the starting offensive line. And the offensive line that looks like it's going to start is the offensive line that's been together for the last 6 or 7 practices, which is Vidarian Lowe at left tackle and Chukwuekorfor at right tackle. That was the O-line again today. So Maye got 0 snaps, 0.0 snaps behind the starting offensive line. And even if he plays snaps behind that starting offensive line on Thursday, here's my biggest question about today's practice and what the Patriots did. What did Drake Maye gain from going out there today and playing the 11-on-11s behind the backup offensive line? I will tell you what he gained today, at least to these eyes. Absolutely nothing. He gained nothing from being out there behind that second offensive line. It was abominable. It was atrocious to watch, and it wasn't on Drake Maye. I'll give you a little bit of an example, okay? The last 12 snaps of Drake Maye's practice, the final 2 11-on-11 periods, he took a total of 12 snaps. I will tell you what happened in those 12 snaps. 6, quote-unquote, sacks. 6 sacks, thanks to his terrible offensive line. That backup offensive line was brutal, and they've been brutal for most of this camp. So here he is. Half of the final 12 snaps he takes in 11-on-11s are sack plays. Just throw them out. Throw them into the garbage. Another play wasn't a sack, but the pocket collapsed or started to collapse around Maye, which rushed him and rushed the play. There was another snap that was a bad snap. And if you've watched this podcast, by now you know who had the bad snap. It was once again Antonio Mafi. So out of the final 12 plays, 11-on-11 that Drake Maye had today, 8 of them were useless. 8 out of the 12. Not a math major, but what's that, 2/3? 6 sacks, a bad snap, and a pocket that collapsed around him. What is he gaining? What is he learning from this? That if you have a terrible offensive line, you're going to be in trouble? Has he not learned that throughout this camp? And I'm watching and I'm trying to figure out, what are they doing? What is the plan? Keep shoving him out there behind this second offensive line, which can't block to save their lives? He's not progressing as much as he could be because he's stuck with this O-line. And beyond the O-line, he's also got all these guys out there, the Mitchell Wilcoxes of the world. You know, the receiver depth chart is the receiver depth chart. He's not working with Jalen Polk or Javon Baker a ton in these 11-on-11s. So what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to do? Because he doesn't have any time to throw the football. And when you're trying to go through this process, when you're trying to figure out the league, right? And you're learning. As you're learning, I would expect that there's going to be some obstacles. But the team should not be placing these obstacles in front of Maye. And that, to me, is what's happening right now. The offensive line play, the fact that he's back there behind this backup offensive line is inherently screwing him up. It's screwing up any kind of progress that we might see. And people are wondering, why is he hesitant on some throws? What's happening here? What's happening there? Well, some of it is certainly him. Some of it is the offensive line that he doesn't trust. Some of it is receivers that drop the football when he gets it to them at times. And I'm just sitting there thinking about, if I'm Drake Maye and I'm trying to put my foot down and I'm trying to figure out my NFL lot in life right now for my rookie season, and I'm doing all that I can to try to progress in battle and show people that I can be that starting quarterback sooner rather than later. And you want to make sure that almost everything is going right if you're Maye, and the pressure is already there on you. And then you're behind this offensive line that is just allowing waves of pass rush into your face. So how do you think that impacts the young man? We saw some of this with Mac Jones and how an offensive line can deteriorate play. By the way, Mac was pretty good from what I've heard in his Jacksonville preseason debut. And some of it had to do with he wasn't running for his life. So this is just a plan now that I'm trying to make sense of, because it's not making May any better. It's just not. I was having a conversation with a friend today, and my friend said it perfectly. He said, I can't tell you if Drake Maye is ready to be the guy. I can't tell you if Drake Maye is taking significant steps in making significant progress. I can't tell you that because he's not really been given a chance to show us that. So I can't sit here and tell you that he's markedly better over the last 3 weeks, or if he's gotten worse the last 3 weeks, because to me, it's flip a coin. Who the hell knows what's going to happen here? Because the elements around him are just not allowing him to showcase what he can do. It's very difficult to be a quarterback when you're getting nonstop pressure. And so it's just snap after snap after snap with the backup offensive line that can't get out of its own way. And it's infuriating. And it leads us to wonder, what do you do on Thursday? What's the plan on Thursday? Now, maybe May will play 2 or 3 series with the ones. We'll see. And if that's the case, then I feel a little bit better about this week and the opportunity that he's been given. It still doesn't erase the fact that I have not seen him take a single snap at any of these padded practices and did not take a single snap today at this joint practice with the top offensive line in front of him. I have not seen him take one single snap, with those being the circumstances. So we'll see what happens on Thursday night, but the question will still have to be asked, was he given enough opportunity? Was he given a true chance without having him behind that starting offensive line? So we'll see. We'll see what the plan is on Thursday. What does Philly do? Do you start your offensive line, the starting offensive line, with May? Is that starting offensive line going against the starting defense of Philadelphia? I mentioned this on 98.5 last week after the first preseason game against Carolina. My issue is you got one series with the ones for Drake Maye, but it wasn't against the starting defense of Carolina. It was against like the 2s and the 3s. Now today, he's facing mostly the backups of the Eagles again defensively. On Thursday night, if the Eagles decide not to play their ones defensively, then he's not going to get hardly any snaps against the starting defense. How does that help him? How does that help him? And what really frustrated me was early in practice, he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good. The one-on-ones, you had wide receivers versus cornerbacks. The one-on-ones, Maye threw 2 really nice touchdowns. I'm sure if you've been on Twitter, you've seen this already by now. He threw a fantastic football over the top to Jalen Polk. Polk made a tremendous fingertip catch for the touchdown. Then Maye came back and hit Wilcox for a touchdown. Very nice throw over the top. He feathered it. Pretty nice catch from Wilcox, especially with the fact that Wilcox seemingly drops every other football thrown to him. But he threw 2 touchdowns to one-on-ones. Then he goes out there, 7-on-7s. Drake Maye goes 6 for 6. He hits Javon Baker deep down the sideline with a beautiful pass. Baker made a nice over-the-shoulder catch. So, 7-on-7s. He's 6 for 6 with a nice throw downfield to Baker. He had another throw to Kayshon Boutte where he threw it behind Boutte, but he threw it behind Boutte on purpose, it looked like to me. The defender was coming towards Boutte. He was screeching in. And so Boutte was coming this way. Defender's going that way, right? They're about to run into each other. So Drake Maye threw it behind Boutte so he can snatch it and then run upfield. So to start the practice, the one-on-ones, he throws 2 great passes, 2 great touchdowns to Polk and Wilcox. Then he goes out there 7-on-7s, goes 6 for 6, hits Baker deep, hits Boutte with that, behind throw to set him up to go upfield against coverage. And you're sitting there going, okay, that's a good start for Drake. He's got some good momentum to start this practice. And then you get to 11-on-11s with that crap-ass offensive line in front of him, and all that momentum is shot. It's like, what did we just see? What just happened? And so it was very frustrating for me today to watch how they're handling Drake Maye. All of these snaps behind the backup offensive line, I just don't know how they're helping him. It's like a fire drill back there. I said this one of the earliest padded practices I went to. Antonio Mafi, he can't snap the freaking football in the shotgun, but yet they kept having him snap the freaking football in the shotgun. Almost every single snap, Maye is reaching down to his shoelaces to pluck it off the ground or over his head. What are we accomplishing here? He doesn't have to take all the snaps with the ones, okay? I'm not saying he even has to split periods with Jacoby Brissett behind that top offensive line, but at least give him a series or two. It's just, it's frustrating. And I got frustrated today. Up until today, I was being patient, and I said, well, let's wait until we get to the joint practice, because if we get to the joint practice and he's out there behind the top offensive line, then okay, I understand what's going on here. But it was more the same today, and that O-line was terrible. Again, if you're just jumping in, I'll share this again for those who are a little bit late to the pod today. In Drake Maye's last 12 snaps of football, 11-on-11 today, he was sacked 6 times. Literally 50% of his dropbacks ended in a sack. You had another bad snap by Mafi, and you had another snap where the pocket collapsed around Drake Maye. So out of 12 snaps, out of the final 11-on-11 snaps that he got today, out of those 12 snaps, 4 of them he could do something with. 8 of them were completely out of his control. 3rd overall pick. Running around like a chicken with his head cut off. All right, I've got some other thoughts, a lot of other thoughts on the joint practices today. But first, let's jump to a couple of super chats. If you want to make your voice heard, if you have a question, if you're frustrated like me, if you want to get something off of your chest, feel free, send the super chat. That's how we pull it up here. I appreciate all the super chats. Jump to the front of the line. And while we're chilling here on this Tuesday, don't forget, take a second. Just take a second and give us that like, thumbs up on YouTube. Helps drive traffic, trying to beat that algorithm. Something else that helps us beat that algorithm, comments. Leave a comment on the podcast if you enjoy what we do. And don't forget to subscribe before you bounce today. Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. IV_213. Which of our receivers had the best day today? So I was going to get to this a little bit later, but I'll get to it right now. I would say for the team periods, the 11-on-11s, the wide receivers were pretty quiet today. But a couple of things. I did not think that Polk and Baker got a ton of opportunities for whatever reason that is. So that's one of the questions. Are they going to play a ton on Thursday night? Maybe. So I didn't see a ton of those guys out there on the 11-on-11s. But as far as, the other wide receivers, Jalen Reagor made a fantastic catch on the sideline. He jumped up and plucked it out of the air from Brissett. So he had a good catch today, a really nice catch. That was really it from him. Tyquan Thornton did nothing. He dropped the pass. That's the only time I saw Tyquan. He was like running a slant, hit him right in the hands. He dropped it. KJ Osborne, couple catches. Nothing stood out. I would say that Polk had a couple catches in the first 11-on-11s with May. And then again, he wasn't really out there a ton. The one-on-ones, you had that Baker catch down the sideline on the 7-on-7s from May, which was a really nice over-the-shoulder catch. Polk, again, when you look at the one-on-ones, he had the touchdown, that fingertip catch, which was the play of the day offensively, the one-on-ones there. And then he had 1 or 2 catches in the first 11-on-11s. Other than that, there wasn't a lot from the wide receivers. Austin Hooper was really the guy who showed up. I will say, too, Pop Douglas, which is not a surprise. Pop made some plays. Shocking. So the best guy on the field, wide receiver-wise today, was Pop Douglas again. He's impossible to stop. I would say I'd probably put Polk after him, and then the rest of the guys were just kind of out there. So that's what I saw. From wide receivers. Tight end, Hooper had the best day. There's no doubt. Hooper had the best day for the tight end position. Hunter Henry was, again, not out there, so no Hunter Henry. Hooper had, I think, 4 or 5 catches by my count, had a ton of targets. He had a nice touchdown. He had an almost touchdown. He went up and got it, and then when he came down to the ground, it popped out, and Philly ended up getting a pick in the end zone. But he was this close. Hooper was this close to having a couple of touchdowns today, and one of them being a really nice touchdown. After watching Hooper, I feel pretty good about the tight ends if Hunter can stay healthy. Hooper's had a pretty good camp. And he was out there today making some plays, and he was open. He was open a decent amount. He got a lot of targets. Another super chat from Charlie. Pressure going to be crazy, especially already seeing some of the other quarterback rookies perform already. Sure, we should be patient, but I don't know in this world. Happy birthday, Nick. Thank you. Yes, it was my birthday yesterday, so that was fun. I didn't really do anything on my birthday. I hung home and just kind of chilled out because Saturday night I went out with the wifey to an Irish pub. Caught some great live music. It was a fun night. And then Sunday, I went out with a couple of friends for some drinks at a brewery in Rhode Island. If you guys know it, Narragansett Brewery by the water there down in Providence, India Point Park. So I went there for a few hours with some friends, and then we went to a little rooftop place to have an appetizer, another drink. So Saturday and Sunday was really my birthday. Last night, had some taco pizza Kelly made. Fantastic. And then she snuck a cupcake in for me for my birthday. So yesterday was a little bit more of a chill day, but thank you. Yes, the pressure. Again, if you're asking me today, what stood out the most, it was by far the pressure. It was by far the offensive line. The backup offensive line especially was terrible. And it was just like Philadelphia was eating their lunch over and over and over again. There was a series. I felt bad for Drake Maye. It was mostly the starting defensive line against the backup offensive line. How do you think that went? I think 3 out of the 4 plays that Drake got were sacks. Like, what are we doing? Terry jumps in with a $50 super chat. Happy belated birthday, Nick. Hoping for a better game Thursday. Yeah, I'm hoping for some snaps behind that top offensive line for May. I'm hoping the offensive line gets their ish straight because they need to. They absolutely need to. You got to allow these guys to compete. So the O-line was the biggest issue today. I do think early on the top offensive line wasn't as bad. This is all relatively speaking. It's all on a scale. Like after you see how terrible the backup offensive line is. But I thought that the top offensive line through the first 3 or 4 periods of 11s, not terrible. 2 of the 4 periods to start off were in the red zone. I didn't think the starting offensive line was bad at the beginning of practice, but as the practice went on, the starting offensive line started to give up some openings, some pass rush lanes, and then again, the backup offensive line was just awful. I know Phil Perry counted 15 sacks the offensive line gave up today. I counted 13, give or take 1 or 2. You might miss one. Phil might see one that he says is a sack. I might see one as like a scramble and say, well, he got away from the sack or they didn't quite get there fast enough. Brissett got rid of the football. There were a couple of plays today where Brissett got rid of the football, I thought, before the rush got close enough to him and they blew it dead. So my total sack count today was 13. Perry had 15. Just way too many sacks. Not great, Bob. As far as the starting offensive line, and Terry, again, thank you for the belated happy birthday wishes and the $50 super chat. Means an awful lot when people spend their hard-earned money to throw a question out there or a thought out there or just to help me financially. Means an awful lot, so thank you. And thanks to everybody who has liked, commented, subscribed, rated, or reviewed this program, either today or in the past. So 2 guys on the starting offensive line had a couple of iffy plays. Chuks Okorafor had a bit of an issue today, a couple of occasions. He had a false start. He had a pressure or 2 given up. He gave up a sack. Sidney So also gave up a sack today, and he wasn't as solid as he has looked early on in these padded practices. So We want to keep an eye on City So. He wasn't necessarily awesome against Carolina in the preseason game last week. He backs it up today with not the best performance in the joint practice. But I still think that the interior offensive line, they're going to be in good shape. I think City So will be okay. Owenu is Owenu, and David Andrews is David Andrews. But, Chooks had a rough night against Carolina. He missed some practices, had a rough night against Carolina, and today had a couple of plays where I would imagine he would want them back. Calvin Anderson was a train wreck 2 or 3 times today. He was a part of the problem for May. Anderson gave up a couple of sacks. He was every few snaps, he was kind of losing his ass out there. So Anderson did not have his greatest day either. And it wasn't just pass protection. Another problem for this offensive line is the run game. And the first half, I don't even know what you would call it, the first series of periods that they went through before they broke out in drills and then got back to do the 11-on-11s. The first periods of like 11-on-11s, the run game was awful. Awful. No run game whatsoever. No run game whatsoever. Everything was a run stuff. Everything was a 1 or 2 yard gain. So not only were you giving up pressures and sacks, but the offensive line also wasn't nearly good enough in the run game. And we've talked about that before. Alex Van Pelt, Drake Maye, the players, they've all talked about this is going to be a run-first team. We're going to be defined by the run game. Well, they best block the run much better. And we also, let me just say this before I go on. We do have to also give credit to Philadelphia, who has an incredibly talented defensive line. This defense has lots of talent. And so you do have to give some of the credit to Philadelphia's defensive line because they are a handful. But the Patriots O-line needed to compete more consistently today. It's as simple as that. It was a struggle bus for the run game. Struggle bus. So you weren't getting the run going. As the practice went on, the pass protection got worse, especially by the second offensive line. There were lots of penalties, lots of pre-snap penalties. Again, false starts, things like that. Brissett at one point had to rehuddle the team. So a lot of flags, and a lot of the flags, most of the flags, were on the offensive line. So the pass protection wasn't great. The run blocking wasn't great. You had a number of penalties. It was not a good day for the offensive line. It was not a good day for the O-line today. Overall, Owenu was fine. Andrews seemed fine. So, overall was okay. Tackles, not great. Not great. The backup offensive line, more of an issue. Also, Jacoby Brissett wasn't as sharp today. You could chalk that up to some of the offensive line issues. Wide receivers were not open a ton for him. The ugliest play was Brissett threw a pick into the middle of the field. KJ Osborne was completely unaware that the football was coming his way. So he's looking like he's running like a crossing route, but he's looking straight ahead. He's not even looking at Brissett, looking for the football, and Brissett throws it to him, and he's not paying attention, so the ball is knocked up, pass is broken up, turns into an interception, and the icing on the cake was that a face mask was called also on the offense. I don't know who it was on. They don't announce it, but there was a face mask on the play on the Patriots. So not only did Brissett throw the pick, and he tried to throw it in a tight window, which wasn't going to work. So it was not a good decision by Brissett. Osborne is not looking for the football. He's completely clueless. It's coming his way. Andrew had a face mask penalty, 15 yards. That might have been the worst play of the day. That was not a good one. Let me get to a couple of good things. I already mentioned Austin Hooper. Ramondre Stevenson. If you say, Nick, did anything go well today? The one-on-ones went pretty well. The 7-on-7s went pretty well. The red zone was not a complete mess. Ramondre Stevenson would be near the top of my list. Now, the run game wasn't good, as I said, for the most part. Big picture, overall, run game, way too many run stuffs, way too many minimal 1 yard, 2 yard gains. But Stevenson did hit a couple of runs. He had 3 or 4 runs today. One of them, I think he would have taken it to the house. It was right side offensive line. So I believe it was Chooks and it was a Wenu. And he, just like that outside zone read, right? That outside zone run. Takes it towards the outside, one cut up the field. And I think Stevenson would have taken it to the house. So that was one of the best plays for the offense today. He had a couple of other runs that I think would have at least netted 10, 15 yards. So Stevenson, and he caught a couple of passes. Stevenson looks good. He looks in shape. He looks quick. He looks like he loves this offense. He has said that this is the offense that he played with in Oklahoma under Lincoln Riley. He looks very, very comfortable. So Ramondre Stevenson looked pretty good out there today, given the state of the offensive line and some of the issues they were having with blocking the run up front. I would say Stevenson, he had a good day considering the circumstances, and I think he's had a good camp. Some good gains, big run that I think would have been a touchdown, and he's going to be critical to this offense. So if you want something that was good, I would say Dre had a pretty good day. Dre had a pretty good day. Along with Austin Hooper, he had a pretty good day. All right, as far as Matthew Judon was out there. Again, I didn't watch a ton of the defense because the fields were split, and the field that was further away from me and closer to the fans in the stands, that was the defense. I was really honed in on the offense. I happened to look over, see a couple of snaps from Judon. I saw him get into the backfield once. He also got absolutely freaking torched by Saquon Barkley. I don't know if it was a wheel route, but I looked up and I saw Barkley and Judon running down the sidelines, and it's just like one of those things that you just know it's an impending doom. Like you're watching and you're like, Judon's not going to be able to hang with Saquon. This ain't going to work out. And nice throw. I think it was by Hurts. Nice throw over the top to Barkley. Barkley gets the touchdown on Judon. Mismatch down the field. I saw Jelani Tavai get into the backfield for a sack, quote unquote. I saw Gonzalez break up a pass. It was Gonzalez versus A.J. Brown. Brown ran a little bit of an out route, and Christian broke it up. But Judon was out there. Judon participated. He took snaps in the 11-on-11s. So I guess that's a good thing. I do know Paul Perillo, who Patriots.com had their Patriots Unfiltered podcast live today during the joint practice. I was sitting right off to the right side of them. They're set. So I know that Paul Perillo, he was mentioning he thought that the front seven played well. And I saw some other people say that. I think Mike Giardi also tweeted out that the front seven was pretty damn good today. So the defense, again, I didn't watch a ton of the defense, but from what I was gathering from other people who had spent more time watching the defense, because what happens is when you have brands, you have multiple people that are covering the joint practice. One person will watch the defense. One person will watch the offense. For example, I know BSJ, Greg was sitting pretty much right beside me. He was a little bit further away from me on the right side, but myself and Bedard were in the same area up top. And Bedard was watching the offense. Giardi was watching the defense. So that's how they broke it up. So from what I have seen, the defense seemed to have a pretty good day. The front seven was good. Christian Gonzalez covered Devontae Smith for the most part. It looked like the Patriots were rotating their second corners against A.J. Brown. Needless to say, A.J. Brown had a day. But they were trying to test, the second cornerback on the outside. Jonathan Jones did not practice. Marcus Jones did not practice. So they were trying to, give Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, Marco Wilson. They were giving those guys opportunities against A.J. Brown to see how they would play. Gonzalez played a lot against Devontae Smith from what I was told. Again, this is not my firsthand recollection of what happened. It's what I was told speaking to other people that watched the defense. So Looked like Gonzo was pretty much on Devontae Smith. We had a skirmish. Yes, we had a skirmish. Of course, it's a joint practice. You always have to have a skirmish. This was like the most predictable skirmish ever. There was a special teams period, and Raekwon McMillan, I don't want to be too dramatic. I don't know if I'd say dropped. He pretty much dropped him. McMillan had a pretty good tackle or hit, whatever you would want to call it. And whoever it was from the Eagles fumbled the ball. So McMillan hits him. The Eagle fumbles the football. The Patriots recover. And the Eagles sideline is somebody, I don't know. I was trying to figure out who it was. I had the binoculars out. I couldn't quite see who was screaming. But there was somebody on the sidelines of Philly that was infuriated with McMillan. And, saying, we don't do that bleep. We're not doing that bleep to you guys. What are you doing that bleep to us? And the Eagles sideline was not happy with the McMillan hit. So it should not shock you, and it certainly did not shock me, that on the very next play in special teams, an Eagle grabbed the Patriot and kind of threw him to the ground, threw him out the club, so to speak. Pretty much after the whistle, or right near when the whistle blew. So there was a little extra. There was a little extra from the Eagle, and so that started the skirmish. Not a surprise. They were not happy with McMillan. Somebody went out there and made a decision to make sure that the Patriots knew they were not happy with McMillan. So that happened, and the guys got together in the big group. And there's some pushing, some shoving. Mostly guys were okay. I think Pop Douglas was hugging a Philadelphia Eagle at one point. So I don't think the majority of the guys were wanting to throw down. But there were a couple. There were a couple in the middle of that. And there was a little bit of that skirmish. So we'll see what happens on Thursday night. Also, if you were asking me, hey, Nick, what's like the biggest takeaway outside of the offensive line and the Drake Maye thing, which just drove me bananas today, I would say these two teams represented who they are, right? Like Philadelphia is a contending team. The Eagles are a team that expect to be in the playoffs. They believe they have the talent to win a Super Bowl this year. They were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They are an upper echelon, top tier, talented football team. The Patriots just aren't right now. And we know that. So did the Patriots offensive line get their clock cleaned for the most part? Yes, absolutely. Especially that second unit who could not help Drake Maye stand up in the pocket to find a receiver. Should it be surprising? I don't think it should be that surprising, because that defensive line is damn good. That Eagles team is damn talented. And this Patriots team is a 4-win team last year with a new offense. They're still trying to figure things out. So it was a tough day. It was a tough day for those guys. But I do think you've got to give some credit to the Eagles and understand that the Eagles are one of the most talented teams and one of the best defensive lines in football. And so that was not an easy assignment today. Should they have played better? Abso-freaking-lutely. Do I have concerns about the offensive line? The tackles? Yeah. Yes. Do I think it's as bad for the top offensive line as some of the other guys? I don't. I think Vidarian Lowe overall hasn't been bad. I think Chuks Okorafor, before he got dinged up, he wasn't that bad up front on the right side. So I'm still waiting to see how this looks on Thursday night and how it looks in the third preseason game. There are no more open practices to the public, so we will not see this team. We will just look at what they do on Thursday night, and then the third preseason game, how much do you draw from that? But right now, I would say I've got some concern at the tackle position. I've got to see more consistency out of those guys. I think the interior offensive line will be okay as long as Sidy Sow is not starting to fall off a cliff. I'm not going to overreact to one preseason game and a couple of snaps today against that defensive line. I saw Sow play really well through 4 padded practices, so I'm not about to lose my mind about him. But yeah, there's absolutely some concern at the tackle spot. They need one of those guys. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They need one of those 4 or 5 tackles on the roster that they're looking at. The Caden Wallaces, the Chooks, Calvin Anderson, who again was bad today, Vidarian Lowe. They need one of those guys. They just need one of those guys to step up because you can help the other tackle spot. So it was a pretty rough day for the guys up front. And it was very frustrating to watch as somebody who is a believer in Drake Maye's talent and stood by that pick on draft night. And I still think he could be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I think he has a very high ceiling. I'm not anywhere near writing off Drake Maye. We haven't seen him behind the starting offensive line outside of one series last week in the rain. But I would love to see him get multiple series behind that top offensive line. Because even if there are some questions with that top offensive line, it's much better than what you got in the backup offensive line. I'll tell you that right now. The second offensive line sucks. They have stunk out loud. So I would like to see Drake Maye out there against the starting defense of Philadelphia with the starting offensive line, with Polk and Baker mixed in, and I would like to see Drake Maye play at least a quarter on Thursday night. He doesn't have to play the entire quarter with the ones, but I want to see at least 2 series behind that starting offensive line on Thursday night. Because what they're doing right now, I don't think is helping Drake Maye. I don't think shoving him behind that bad offensive line over and over and over again and speeding up his clock and getting pressure nonstop, I don't think it's helping him. I don't think they're accomplishing much at all. So I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope that the young man gets a chance on Thursday night for more than one series to play behind that top offensive line with some of the top weapons and with Ramondre Stevenson in the backfield. I'm going to hope. It might be hoping against hope. Might end up seeing the same damn thing play out on Thursday night as we saw play out last week. I hope not. All right, don't forget to like, comment. Those 2 things. Takes very little of your time. You know, we get thousands of people watching these videos at times, and we got like 200 likes. Takes like a half a second. Just click the thumbs up. That's all it takes before you go. Click that thumbs up. Throw a comment in. All of those things, right? Like, comment, subscribe. Rate and review my Spotify, Apple Pods, people. I'm back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow, 4 o'clock. We will preview the preseason game against Philadelphia on tomorrow's podcast. I'll also take a look at that Juju Smith-Schuster story from Andrew Callahan. I'm a little skeptical about that, what was said in that story. So I'll get to that tomorrow. But until then, be well. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.